And we are back with another episode of Best of Three podcast. I'm Alvin, that's Torrey, and we are deep in the thralls of some good coaching work here. In a previous episode, we talked about the 5 rings, Torrey's 5 rings of player development, and we thought it'd be good to come back and maybe put that to the side for right now, but talk about something that I learned from Torrey as a young coach. Torrey, you call it time management / it's all about time. I'm gonna let you take it from there. Yeah.
At the end of the day, in our game, Alvin, it's all about time. Do you have time to do what you want to do? A player hits a certain ball, they're really trying to either maintain the time they have, take the other person's time away, or defend the other person who's trying to take the time away from them. At the end of the day, your constant tug of war of that constant battle is really what it comes down to. You being on the run, you're trying to buy some time back. You're getting a short ball, you're taking time away. Obviously, if you're trading good ground strokes, holding the baseline, you're maintaining time until one of the two happens. The reason I think it's important to understand that lens is too much time, in my opinion, is spent on technique and not on the tactics and the different tactics you're going to find yourself in. A person who plays the ball on the rise, hits a lot of ball, takes the ball pretty hard. I got a young girl I'm working with. She was about 6, 7 years old, good player. She's about a 7 UTR now, really doing some nice things, but she's been training to go so far forward and on the rise. She hasn't been very good at going backward. And so, not that I'm a huge fan of backing up, but at some point when the person starts hitting heavier balls, you just can't hit every ball on the rise. And so she was so poor at backing up, letting the ball come back down. She was shanking at balls about the strike zone because she felt every ball had to be hit on the rise. A few weeks later, she's doing so much better at it. She understands how to use spin herself. Turns out she didn't have very good spin. She just drove the ball really well and tagged it all, in the corners pretty well. It was really, really fast. And that really needed it. Well, she was okay. She got away with it. She finished top 15 in the country last year, but she wasn't understanding the rest of the game. And to be honest, was getting near the end of her her skill set at hitting it that one way. Time is the common denominator in all of this. When I talk about taking away someone's time, maintaining your time, or defending when they're trying to take away from you, that's really the whole nuts and bolts. But let's dive a little deeper.
Yeah. Let me ask you this then. When you say time, taking away someone's time, I think that it implies what comes after that. Time to do what?
Excellent question. Let's first talk about time, because I want to make sure we both understand what we're really talking about is the difference in time. You hit a ball to me, I had a ball back to you. The space of that is our rally. You hit a ball deep to me, I had a ball short to you. You're able to step in on that same ball. By definition, you just took away some time. 2 things happened. My ball wasn't deep enough. You, by definition of had to, the ball was shorter, were able to step into the court. You were hitting the ball sooner than I was able to either recover or sooner than you hit the last ball. So the tempo is now faster.
Right. So ideally, every shot that I hit, I should have enough time to prepare for that shot and get my unit turned in place, get my feet where I want to let that ball get right into the strike zone where I want it, and hit the ball that I want to hit from where I want to hit it. That would be me.
Repeat.
That would be me with the ideal amount of time.
100%. So, as you know, we talked about this before. We got the time, the court, and the options. So now I've got options in my favor. I can roll to reset. I can slice to reset. I can hit cross court. I also have to defend your options at the same time.
Right.
And as soon as I give you a shorter ball, what do I give you? The ability to use more of your options and almost always it takes away my court and my time. That's what we're getting at. If I hit the same ball deep as you hit back to me, there's no time difference. We're trading. And by definition, we're maintaining each other's time. One of us decides to change direction. In most cases, if the ball's hit pretty good, you're down the line is a little bit suspect because you didn't have time to change that direction. You didn't have time to get there. You didn't have time to plant, move, and hit, or at least not in a spot that's going to be good enough to hurt me. And at that point, maybe bad decision, right? Maybe a lot of errors. The great Craig Tiley had a great stat one time, and he's now player development director and runs the Tennis Australia. He runs the Australian Open. He said 66% of the time you change direction, it ends up in an error. And then he says 2/3 of all winners are down the line. He says, now, which part of it are you going to be on today? And I thought it was just a great quote.
Oh,
So
God, that's
you
good.
understand the concept. Going down the line is a game changer and the death knell all at the same time. But what is the difference? The time. I roll the ball up to give you time to go down the line. Well, now guess what? Your chance hitting the ball down the line and pegging me one is probably pretty good. You know what I mean? So therein is that's the whole enchilada, right? Can I do what I want to do under the time I have? And if the tempo's big enough, and your shot's good enough, it's not really as open as I think it is. Hence why I have to go across court. The court, right? I have only so many options from behind the baseline. But as soon as I go inside the baseline, I got a few more. As soon as I get more balls inside the service box, I have a lot more. I use a lot more court. I don't get there because I asked you for permission. I got there because I took the shot, I hit the shot, or you gave me the shot, and I was able to convert. So I think that's where the whole thing has to be understood with time. A lot of coaches understand this. A lot of good players understand this. Sometimes juniors, even parents, don't fully understand the time element. I want to go off on maybe two very similar related fields. Number one, you can hit yourself out of your own coverage area. If I hit the ball so big, especially hitting it down the line or change direction, or hitting it really, really big cross court, making you late, I'm going to have a bit of difficulty running down your late ball.
Right. Yeah.
And therefore, I'm hitting myself with my own pace, which started the rally being fast. I'm hitting myself out of my coverage area. I hit two normal forehands and a big, huge forehand wide across, and you're late going down the line, and I now have to stretch out and slice my backhand. I actually hurt myself. I didn't help myself. I took away time from you. You countered. I had to slice. I give you the floater now, and guess what? I'm the one out of time. I was the one who thought I was attacking. So that's the first one. Be careful of not hitting yourself out of your coverage area. Second, and you made this point about the steal, you called it, with some of the top players that are nowadays, they're playing such good defense that they're stealing the point from you toward the end. The Yannick Center types, even the Alcaraz types. What are they stealing? Well, they're waiting for you to go down the line. They're waiting for you to pull the trigger because they know you're vulnerable at that very point in time. Whether they go back behind you open stance, whether they go back cross court and run you wide with the ball, opening up a little more court for themselves, they are hurting you with your own pace. And those are just two things out on the edge of this that people need to understand. The aggressive player can't be too aggressive to hit themselves out of time. And the counter punisher, I like to call this player, is the guy that's quick enough, good enough, and has a good enough strike, but he does it well on the move. He can actually punish you with your own good shot. If you're not careful, watch out for those types, because that's the most, in my opinion, currently, that's the most deadly type of player, is who's hurting you with your own time.
Yeah, and that's the even digging kind of tangential here with that steal score situation that Sinner and Alcaraz have been both so proficient with. It's when they get outside the doubles alley, hitting a ball that you think they should hit back cross court, that they're pulling line. It's so effective because they're not actually going line. They're bringing that ball back into the court.
100%.
But it's just in the court in front of them. It's down, quote unquote, down the line, but it's almost like a skinny cross court, if you will.
100%.
That's some new stuff. But I didn't want to take you off. I didn't want to take you
No,
off course there.
but that's big, and I think that's the thing you have to understand. And that's where your mobility, your fitness, your athleticism all kicks in and helps you be able to have that. But I think it's that basic understanding. Now, I am a parent, and I have a 12-year-old son and daughter. They are gifted with racket speed. I mean, this young man and young lady can absolutely tag a ball. They just had a beautiful strike. Ball comes off the bracket clean. I mean, rarely shank. This kid's a strike. I mean, they just, there's no ifs, ands, or what's about it. I would tell that player, if I'm working with them, to really emphasize a couple of things. Coming forward, drop shots because the ball's so deep. Don't forget about the short part of the court. And high tempo. Be used to that ball coming back at a certain point. Those are the first handful of things. The next thing I would tell them is be very good at handling reset balls because you're going to get a lot of them, right? Kids are going to hit that ball back to you. And don't be so in love with just the one type of ball. Be able to take that ball out of the air, take the ball and step up because you're going to get a lot of them. You hit the ball so well, you're going to get that ball a lot. And at some point, know that the ultimate taking away of time is going to be coming forward to them. They got to come up with that sooner than later because the ball is going to just make that happen sooner. I've got a 12-year-old boy or girl who is quick as all get out. Not that big of a swing. Racket speed is about average, maybe above average, a little bit, maybe below average. But boy, are they fast. I teach that kid to do more hugging to the baseline. We're taking everything we can early, taking it on the rise. We're going to use the ball and the ground force against itself and push it back to the court, right? You don't have to hit the ball big, but you have to hit the ball deep. And you better be able to be accurate. And we're going to do a whole lot of cross court down the lines. We're doing a whole lot of bounce feed and things to help you get used to pace and knowing where that strike zone is because being short, strike zone is a little more limited. But we have to make sure we read well, move well, hit the ball deep, deep, and deep again. And that way that player can be able to handle those hard, big hitters, so pure strikers, and go from there. And we're going to work on passing shots. We're going to work on reset lines. We're going to work on hitting open stance line, open stance cross, doesn't matter. We're going to work on it, and you're going to be so good on the move that the on the run is rare. You're just so good moving either way, it doesn't really matter. And so these are just types of things to kind of work on with this person, all to help you maximize your time.
The last hypothetical felt very personal, by the way.
What's that? I hear
that last hypothetical felt very personal.
And it's also very real, right? It's also very real. And maybe you're somewhere in between. Maybe you're more of one of the extremes or what have you. But at the end of the day, use what you do have, right? And maximize it. That's the thing with the time you need. One of my players I have now, we may get him or his dad when we do a parents episode. We may get his dad on the show. The kid was one of those hard-hitting kids in the 12s that I taught him to have a heavier ball, really fast. But it was a funny thing, Alvin. I noticed early on he didn't read very fast. People might say, what do you mean to read? He would take the very first ball he could and go down the line. And it was almost so predictable that the person hitting it kind of knew where he was going at a certain point. Well, sure enough, he got the next ball tagged back to him. And what did he try to do? Because he didn't think the first ball worked, he started hitting the next ball even harder. He was one of those double down the line kind of kids. He'd take one down the line, hit the next down the line. And if it didn't work, he was being ran himself or airing out, right? One of the first things I did after we kind of reconnected back here at the club mat now, I said, we're going to change up your game a little bit. We're going to take you to be more of a counter puncher. I said, with the hopes of you being more of a counter punisher one day. And he was really confused early. He was, well, what do you mean? Should I be aggressive? I said, oh, you're going to be aggressive still. I said, but we're going to have you to have your ball. I said, because two things are happening. You're missing a lot, and your depth is getting off by about ball 4. You go for the ball clean, a step in, open stance, a little shorter. You start backing up further. And before you know it, you're 8 feet behind the baseline trying to tag the ball, and your length of the ball is the same, but you're 8 feet further back. Now you're actually on the run, as I said earlier, hitting yourself out of your coverage area. I had the kid start going heavier, hitting the ball deeper, getting the ball out of the strike zone. He could always hit the ball big, pretty clean, but he wasn't too good. I made him go heavy, Alvin. Now, it's taken about a year to fully get his head right. But he is now starting to take the ball where the kids change direction. It's now his counter strike. And now he's starting to use what he used to be the person who initiated the strike. Now he's countering, having a lot of success, doing pretty well, only because he's changed up the way in which he handles his time. He has time to begin with.
Yeah.
The strikes before were taking away his own time. And then as fast as he is, he's actually using the speed to hit bigger, and he's out of time. Now he's going the other way around, starting to counter, starting to hit better. And he's really starting to have some success here recently in some tournaments. But here's the point. He had to re-establish his time. He was hitting so big that it was taking himself out of time. He was panicking. He was hitting the ball too hard, too soon, going for change directions too early. And it was hurting his time and his decision making. And I felt like he needed more time. He didn't see what's going on. You could almost see his eyes. He was just kind of almost in this kind of weird like state, like, dude, calm down. It's just a cross-court ball. No, you'll get another chance, I promise you. But those are things you kind of see a kid maybe a little bit. You have to really understand, do they understand how much time they have? They see an opening. It doesn't always mean it's the one to take. So I say that to tell you, now let's kind of get maybe into the a little bit more, peel a few layers back and kind of take a deeper dive in this one here. In the time continuum, you are trying to hit through the court to take away a person's time. You're trying to open up the court to get the person to cover more court in the same amount of time. You're trying to manipulate the length of the court, drop shots, heavy balls, obviously in between. You're trying to transition in the court, which of course takes away a little bit of court. The ball's coming back from a shorter distance, and you're trying to hold your court position. And these are the things that you now have to understand are all impacting your time.
Let's before you deep dive or dive deep into that, I want to make sure we go back and really nail down the underpinnings here of time. You touched on it earlier about I hit the ball, you hit the ball, and the time in between that is the rally. But something that you taught me very early in my coaching career, and I still use it to this day as an adult player, is I think the people need to be very clear about what else is happening throughout that sequence, right? So it's not just I hit the ball and you hit the ball. It is I hit the ball bounces on your side, you hit the ball, and then the ball bounces on my side and I hit the ball. But those are distinct things in which route. We are both doing different things at the same time. So can we maybe break down kind of how you teach that and what should be happening at different stages of the rally?
100%. That's a great point. You've heard me call it the cadence before.
Yes.
The cadence of a rally. The ball hit to you, be it from the serve, be it from a ball machine. Doesn't matter. Let's just use that number 1. We're talking about old school music class and the metronome in the back corner is going
when your opponent hits the ball, boom, that's 1.
That's 1. The ball crosses the net, the ball bounces to you. That is 2. Your shot being 3, and more importantly, your ball going back is the 4, if you want to call it a 4, but it is now the complete cycle. The 1, the bounce 2, your hit 3, your bounce and then 1 all over again. In that time frame, this is where it really comes down to the brass tacks of time. The ball coming to you, before it bounces, you've got to make what I call the big move. Whatever that is, be it a return of serve, be it a cross-court shot. You've got to make the majority of your move to cover that ball before it bounces. That's the first part of time to cover said shot.
Well, even before that, on the 1.
On the 1. And I'll get to the split step and all
okay.
that.
All right, very fair.
Sure, because I want to get that as it leads into the next ball. The 2. Ball is now bounced. These are not optional. The ball's been hit. The ball's now bouncing. You have to keep up with said time that you've been given. Between 2 and your hit is the little moves. Your ability to step in. Your ability to take a few extra steps. Your ability to take it early, or did you need to take it back because you didn't have enough time? 3, of course, is your hit. As good as it is or not so good, either way, that's your hit. And between the time your ball goes back across the net is your recovery.
Recovery time.
right? And between the time that ball bounces and the time the ball's hit again is your read and split step before you do it all over again. So you have big move in between the shot and a bounce, little move between the bounce and your hit. You've got recovery between your hit and your ball's bounce, and you what I call read and recover, because you got to see what happened, and then read and split, which is now your move to get ready for the next ball. All of that is the full cycle of the cadence. And any point in time where you have less time to recover, you have less time to make big moves, less time to make the little steps to either step in or what have you, is your time being taken away, or the person's impacting the ball at a point that you're not keeping up with as fast as you would like.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that. Because I think that is very important to understand. So when two players are hitting as a player in this scenario, you see one, it kind of sounds like 1, 2, 3 is my hit, and 1, 2, 3 is my hit, and 1, and so on and so forth.
So on and so on. And the tempo can be affected. It can be nice and rhythmic at times. Those are good rallies when you're training and drilling. It can be very arrhythmic when the guy's slapping a ball down the line on you, hit the drop shot. It can be, serves are the most chaotic because you have no idea what's about to happen. You know what I mean? And you have to cover that and give yourself some time in the process. And some of the best players have the best timing to handle that, and then you go from there. So I think it's something that you have to kind of really get a handle on, because at any point where there's literally less time to do, you typically have breakdown, right? And that's also what you're trying to do. And the person a lot more time, there's tends to be a little less breakdown. The kid has less pressure and on them to do said things. So I think those are where the time, literal time, can be taken away. Clearly the depth is a big one, because the better the depth, the longer time I have to recover, the longer time I have to read. I can kind of figure out what's going on and see what your options are. When my ball's shorter, I don't have the same time to read. I don't have the same time to recover. And my time to basically to not just get back where I was, I'm now getting close to being out of time. I feel it, sense it. I naturally might move back a little bit, trying to scrap a little more. But at that point in time, pardon the pun, I am starting to lose said time. And the only way I'm going to get it back is with a really, really good deep ball, and you allowing me to get back somehow.
Right, because ideally our recovery happens and the one split step happens in a place that's somewhere near the center of the court, or where I expect the ball to be coming back to. But there's lots of ways to cheat that: add pace, decrease space.
Create
right?
space, go back behind the guy. You name
Right.
it. All those things are where you can start to see your time being affected.
Yeah.
Now,
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but now we're
this is
back
great
and
stuff,
we're in an even place.
Hopefully add some color to the other pieces I talked about. When you talk about going behind somebody, you're talking about opening up the court. The person, most people are pretty good moving side to side for a couple of steps, right? Even me at 52, I hit 2 or 3 steps. My point's not too bad. 3, 4 steps, I get near that sideline, I'm a little suspect, especially now with my knees being what they are. Going outside the sideline, buddy, I'm not coming back. I'm going for something.
Go in line.
I'm not coming back, right? And not realistically anyway, or I realize that I realize I'm going that far. I'm sorry that I'm not tagging it. I'm hitting the drop shot. I'm doing something because I realize this isn't in my favor to go to take this ball full court. I might as well take my own chance. But to say that, if I can now open up that court routinely on both sides of the court, where I'm hitting, to your point, center and Alcaraz hitting outside the single sidelines, they're bringing the ball back within the lines. Well, meaning sitting cross court, you call it. That is an art, and that's great court coverage. Opening up the court makes the person have to do that. And only a handful of people, your phrase, only a certain profile of a player can do that regularly, and they better be fast. The other part is the depth of the court, which again gives me a little more time, and hopefully, as the ball penetrates with the pace, with the depth, it takes away your time even getting to you. And if you can only handle that backing up, hitting high, you give me more time. And if I'm pretty good, I usually move forward, taking that ball earlier. which continues to push you back, which puts more pressure on you, puts more constraints on you with where you are. So there's two of those little, I'm going to call them those keys, those impacts. I opened the court, made you cover more of it. I pushed you back and made you be in the back portion of it, largely making the ball shorter each time. The other one is if the short part of the court opens up for me, for you, the court's longer than it is wide, so I can hit my drop shots on you better now. I can come forward, and you really have a hard time passing me when you're that deep in the court as well. So my transition, number 4, my transition on the court, my mid-court, my step-up forehand, my mid-court, my approach, my volleys, all now just keep taking away more time because there's no bounce, right? So 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3 turns into and 1, 3. And at that point, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, there's no and. So at either point in time, you're now have the same job with one less portion of time. And at that point, you might be in a very tough spot. So at that, and again, pressure, and pressure over time just creates a lot of problems. What's the old expression? Pressure will bust a pipe. You know what I mean? So it's the same concept here. The last one to me is holding your court position. And I think that people need to understand that holding the court position is a big one, because what allows me to do it to you and you not do it back to me is my ability to hold the court as best I can. You got to give ground here and there. You have to be able to take a certain heavy ball and hit it at a right enough time that you can get the ball back deep and then allow yourself to take the ball on the rise. As you get really, really good, you don't have to go back much at all. You just hit the step up early as you see it, and you can handle more of the ball, and that facilitates you hitting a harder deep ball in general. But at some point, the guy's heavier ball is it's gonna do something to you. You're gonna have to be able to find a way to hit that ball from behind the baseline. So I feel the court position is a little bit more of a give and take, but having the ability to do both is going to be big, and it's going to be able to buy yourself some time. You can slow some things down. If you're missing for whatever reason, hitting drives, you're going to need to hit the ball a little heavier, but that's also going to necessitate you backing up a little bit as well to be able to hit the ball heavier from. You can't just hit a heavy ball from below your knees, a little tough like that, and you can't hit. And you don't want to drive from above your shoulder, right? So there's a give and take, and that each choice has its own ideal strike zone and has its own court position that it's hit well from. So those are just some things that I like to help parents, coaches, obviously kids understand. And if you lay them all out, there's 5 of them. We all can do a few of them pretty well, right? Maybe 2 of the 5, right? Alvin, you were a good player. You had a nice lefty ball. You hit the ball pretty heavy. You had a nice backhand. You had a nice backhand slice. You were probably a better backhand now than you had back when you were playing. You loved your forehand back in the day, and used to run around it. But when I see you strike your backhand, I say to myself, he's got the antidote to his heavy ball. So he creates a little bit of time with his forehand, but he drives with his backhand, which is what you want to do. You want to be able to not give too much time. And the heavy on the forehand lets you run around and get your point when you can. If you drove more forehands, you would have less time.
And see, this is happening to me now as I get older. I struggle to get as much. I can't open the court as well now, and I end up getting rushed on the backhand side. Like where I used to be able to hook the forehand off the side of the court, now it tends to want to go through the court, but that thing's coming back right into my backhand, and I get rushed.
So you're going to have to either adjust your backhand swing and be more on the rise with more of a good Tommy Paul, set it and forget it, kind of a backhand and move forward, or you're going to back up a little more, get back hit and have your ball hitting 1 or 2 more to set it up. There's only so much time.
Not so much time.
So at some point, something's got to give. I would even say if your backhand's catching up, run around less, drive the backhand more, get away from it that's heavy. If it's Russian roulette, but it can work if you can play within those confines. Let the heavy ball be your backup plan, because that was your old plan, right? And hit more heavies when you can, but that's going to require a court position adjustment as well. That's the whole key here, Alvin. The time is going to be effective one way or the other. Do you have the goods to change it up when you can? Can you handle the out wide? Nobody hits an angle off a pace.
Exactly.
So that's not happening. And the heavy ball, if it's short, it's a liability, right? So it's not to say there's any one perfect style. You have to have them all. But the whole point I want people to understand, especially the parents that are out there listening to this, look at your kid's game and say, my kid does, of those things he mentioned, does he hit through the court? Does he open up the court? Does he manipulate the court, the whole length of it, from the droppers to the heavy balls? Does he transition through the court well, and does he hold court? There's probably one or two that little Johnny or little Joanna does pretty well. They are getting beat by those other three. They're just not holding court well enough. They're just not transitioning well enough. They're just not reading when, to come forward, and they're hurting the person a lot. They're not moving it up to capitalize. The kid's getting back to the point, or they're rushing the ball a little too early. They're hitting low volleys at the service line instead of hitting one more approach shot. Something. One of those three is pretty good. One of those five. 2 or 3 of those 5 are probably a little bit need to be worked on quite a bit to further kind of finish what they started. But it goes back to time, and get them to work on those things as skill sets. They can often be looked at as, oh, he always misses those. Well, I would counter that. Does he see it? Does he read it?
Right.
Did he know that he had it? Is he truly in control, or is he just kind of slapping the ball? Does he know it and he sees it late? In which case, have him hit another ball or two, hit a heavy ball, give him time to catch up. And if he sees it, doesn't get it, and he just can't get there in time, but he sees it, he knows it, well, now that's a footwork thing. We've got to spend more time on the jump rope. We've got to spend more time running down sprints, more times understanding the up and back. He probably moves pretty well side to side, not as well moving back and forth. But some way, somehow, you've got to affect or have an answer for those 5 pieces. Because if you don't, the kid's going to do it to you, I promise you.
And the one part I wanted to kind of break open a little bit here, I think the first 4, through the court, open the court, length of court, and transition to court, are all very visually straightforward as far as what that means. But the court position part, I want to make sure that I'm even understanding it correctly. So I'm going to feed it back to you. This looks like more defending where you are physically standing in the court in comparison to what your opponent is trying to do to you. So I think maybe a really good visual representation of that might be like Iga Swiatek, right? Like, you see her on top of the baseline and someone hits a tough ball deep to her. She's not going to back up. You quite often see her down on a knee hitting that ball, or same thing, getting into a corner and hitting that open stance and moguling back in. It's like she's not going to let you pull her off the court. She's going to be very strong with her legs and her position. And that is how I understand court position
100%.
when you feed it to me.
And there's others that back up a little more than they probably should. I think Coco does a nice job of covering court from further back. Very good on the backhand side. Point side, she's not as strong on that side. She doesn't have the same depth, I'll say, and impact of the ball on the forehand side. Backhand, she's very strong with. And the taller Madison Keys, Arena Sabalenka types are able to hit through the court so well that they challenge you to stand in the court and hit with them.
Right.
Do you want to trade 90-mile-an-hour backhands with me? Please. Because 85 is my low. I can get to 95 on a given day. I can even tag one about 100. If 70 is about your limit, 80 when you're hitting really well, I'm going to win this foul. I will hit bigger and more consistent than you will. And if you give me that ball just a tiny bit slower, that's enough time for me to get around it and tag it. And I hit both sides. I don't have to run around and hide a weakness. My back is just as good. And I think what you start seeing with some high-level women's tennis is they are tagging the ball. And so time is not enough. You don't have a lot of time, and if you're not able to crack it back and do it consistently, buddy, it's going to be a very short day for you. You know what I mean? So those kind of players are not only holding baseline, they're driving and holding the baseline. So some of your players like, I'll use Oz Jabor. She's the first one that comes to mind that has a little more crimp, a little more slice, a little more roll. She moves the ball around a little differently. She may be able to move in, move back. Oz comes forward a good bit, right? And has nice hands around the net. But those are kind of players we have to really understand. In general, the women's tour does a great job of taking away time and holding the court position. Where the men, you've seen Alcaraz, we watched during the Australia, the words Melbourne, the word Melbourne was in between him and the baseline, right? So the girls were always in front of Melbourne, right? And Alcaraz may have sliding marks, 8 feet behind them, going off to the side. So Novak is a person that really hugs the bases pretty well. Yannick Sinner can cut the corners off sideways and backwards. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got
Yeah.
full compass range. So does Alcaraz and a lot of these young players. I think Tommy Paul does a great job of holding the court and doing his thing. But again, it's not to say that there is a right way. But the further you get back, the heavier your ball better be, and the longer your ball better be, because you've got a better strike zone. You got a lot more court to defend as a result. So
And you have fewer options from back
you
there
have
as
fewer
well.
options, and if you're not fleet of foot, buddy, that's gonna be a problem. So
And
again,
it's interesting how those all work together, right? Like, it's just in that example, like if you need to back up to give yourself more time, you're compromising your court position, and
right,
which also decreases your options.
that's
But
right.
if you want to, bring your court position up to try to give yourself more options, you're also going to have less time. So it's all
You'll
a
never get all three, right? And it's your choice. You're taking one and nixing the other, but you're saying that's what I want and I'm good at it, and statistically and skill wise, I'm pretty good at it. And that's what I'm going with. And we call that my game, right?
or you have to. You've made the decision. I have to do this.
Right, right. And I think getting good at that is where your improvement lies. At a certain point, most guys have big serves, right? And so at some point, to handle that big serve is not an option. You have to, or you're just going to get blown off the court. You're not going to break. So whether that's backing up, going heavy, whether that's blocking, whether that's being really good open stance and getting that, I'm going to get 80% of these in this area. If I get ace, I get ace, but I'm going to take 80% of them back to the guy and to take away his time to a good first strike. That works too. But at the end of the day, that's my, as I said before, my holy trinity. That is my time court options. I just have to be able to dictate to at least two of them. And if I do that, the third one's probably coming my way. And if I can at least do one of them, I'm hanging. I'm hanging until I can get the other one. I hit the ball back deep. I have enough time to hit the next one, hit the ball deep and penetrate through the court. I've got time, the option, run around it, or at least take the next back where I want. And if I get time and court, now I got the option. Then you do go down the line. I can go behind you. I can get my angle, whatever it is. I now have kind of worked my way into all three. The flip side, ball wasn't as deep. Had to back up. I lost a little bit of time. You ran me. I had one less option. Now I'm going back cross court, and so on and so on. So it's very easy. And tennis gets very situational. As soon as that one thing changes, everything changes. You know what I mean? Your options, change like that. Your time changes like that. And if you're running up or running back, obviously your court changes, pretty darn quickly. So those are things that I think people have to understand is work first on maintaining it, handling it at a certain rate of speed, a certain tempo, be able to hug the baseline off of drives, be able to hold the baseline off of spins and heavies, be able to get low off of slices, and now you're able to at least be in the game long enough to not have to, back up too much and not be too affected by a change of pace or by a change of height in that sense. And that's hard to do. That's a true skill to me for a national level player. By national, talking top 100, top 150, give or take in the country. You have to be pretty good at handling two of those by 12 nationals. And by 14s, you need to be pretty good at handling all three as best that level can bring. I'm not saying a 14 is going to handle the 16th level of ball at that, but he should be pretty close. And same with the girls. And 16th girls is obviously, a lot of girls are full grown by the time they're 16, right? So it's just a thing. They better have it down by 14 for sure for the girls, and 14s, maybe early 16th for the boys, as they're starting to mature as well and hitting that bigger ball. Again, you got to get good at that. And then for the bigger hitter, you need to be able to have the ability to finish and take away the time more than that. For the counter punisher, he's going to be a counter puncher first, right? He's getting to the ball. He's going to then get better at punishing as he goes. He's got to get a bigger weapon at some point, just like the bigger, stronger hitter's got to be able to defend as he gets older. So you don't ever get away from it. It's just which one you may have first may have been a natural thing, and which one you had to develop may have come later on. But
I think
you got to have all of them.
Yeah, and I think even like as a player, understanding the the cadence portion of it, the 1, 2, 3 portion of it, from the time you step onto the court, right? It will vary with every person that's on the other side of the net from you, right? And I think the better you can understand that as early as possible when you're hitting with someone is a really good way to understand, like, okay, my normal cadence is much slower than the ball that this person's hitting. I need to speed it up. And you will. If you can recognize it, you will. And then I think also
great point.
that also allows you to then really start to watch tennis in a different way as well. Like you start to watch the pros, and it starts to it becomes a little more simple, and you can kind of see where cross-court rallies start to turn before they turn. You all of a sudden you go, oh, she's behind in this rally now.
That's right.
And someone else is like, what do you mean behind?
Point, what is she behind?
She's behind on what? Next ball. Watch out. Here it comes.
You know it's there, and here they come. That second on the run ball just got a little bit shorter. You know what I mean? There's times when, and I know if you're like me, there's times I've looked over watching the ball, and all of a sudden my eyes had to come back, and Alcaraz had hit a drop shot out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, I didn't see the ball coming. He was so far behind the baseline, and next thing you know, he brought out the knife, and I was like, good drop. I had no idea he would drop that one there. Novak does a great job of coming in, does some serving volley from time to time. Why? Because he knows people are rolling balls on. You know what I mean? So he's now developed a way to come into, and this guy's a perennial ground stroke. Got a much bigger serve now than he had 20 years ago, and he's hitting the ball coming for it, and pretty good volleys on my head. I say it to say he's found different ways to take away your time, and I think you pointed to the cadence thing. On another episode, we'll go deeper into the whole time and timing, and the zone was something I like to talk about, because a lot of your decisions are going to come down to that to that constant. And are you maintaining your time well enough to do what you want to do? Because really, that's really all you have to really decide between is, can I do what I want to do in the time I have?
The time I have, yeah.
Right, I like to do it, but if I don't have time, well, it's just thought. It's not a or it's hope. And as my good friend, the great Adam Gusky, hope is not a strategy. You can't hope. And his whole point was, hey, if you're hoping, buddy, you've already lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is good stuff. Do you, listening to this, and I think sometimes it can be spot on, I think other times it can be a little bit vague for people. If you were to go explain this to someone else about time, I think intuitively a tennis player would understand time, court, and options and how they're all interrelated, right? I think if you were talked to a pretty good level player, they would understand those 5 impacts I was talking about as far as how to take away or manipulate someone's time. What would the parent or the 12-year-old parent understand, or how would you explain it to that parent simple enough to help them understand from cadence to decision the time they have?
Yeah. This is a very present example. So my kids have the front door of the school opens at 8:00 in the morning. That's the earliest you can go in, and then they kind of shut the doors at like 8:20. So you got about an 8 o'clock to 8:20 range to get your kids into the school, right? And we live the walk from my house is 12 minutes to the front of the school, right? So ideally, we're walking out of here at 7:45, right? Because that is the ideal amount of time. Gives me 15 minutes to get the kids to school, and they're going to be there on time. Even if we're a little slow that morning, we're still going to be there with plenty of time. Even if we're late, we're still going to be there by that 8:15, because I've got us out of the door. It's targeting 7:45. Now, right, if my kids get up at 6:30, right, we have plenty of time to hit that 7:45 marker. We can have a bigger breakfast, right? We can maybe even read a book. We can mess around and call a grandparent in the morning, right? We got a little, especially my parents being in Africa, they're different time zone. It's a great time to call them in the morning if we have the time, right? That's if I have the time. Now, if the kids for some reason wake up at like 7:15, now I'm rushed, right? I don't have all those options I had if we woke up at 6:30, right? So now we can't really do the gourmet oatmeal, right? It might be Cheerios this morning, right?
Sure. That's all
No,
the time you
that's
have.
all the time I have. We're not making lunch today. Nope, you're getting it at school because we've run out of time for all these options, right? So I think the big kicker here is understanding what I have to get done in the allotment of time. So between the time that I hit a ball and you hit a ball, there are things that I need to do to be able to hit the next shot as well as I possibly can. Now, that time can get taken away from me, right? I don't really have time.
You can squander it.
I can waste it, right?
Right,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I might have the time to hit the shot I want to hit, get to the place I want to recover, and be prepped for the next ball. But if I didn't get out of my shot fast enough to get back to where I need to be to recover, then I've wasted the time, right? And now that if you know how much time you have and you are very clear about the things you have to do in that time. And I think that's the part that we're probably going to drill down on this in another segment, is like, there are a lot of things that need to happen between my my 3 and your 1.
That's right.
A lot of stuff happens in there with my feet, with my hands, a lot in my eyes.
And the reads in the eyes, 100%.
Yeah, there's
100%.
a lot happening there. So I think, looking at it big picture and then looking at it very specifically at the different things that have to happen there, I think that's where you can go with a parent or a younger player. And that's why I like the going to school analogy. There's all these little things that happen.
Could not have been a better analogy. It's so tangible, and every parent of a kid can appreciate. Heck, the kid can appreciate it, right? The why they can have better the nice oatmeal that day and have more time, and the other time had to be Cheerios in a cup. Hey, let's go. Let's figure it out. We got to go, and that's because that's the constant. The bell's going to ring at that time. You know what I mean? The ball's going to be at this time. Period. It's going to happen. All right. And I think that's such a good analogy. I was just, as you were weaving the story, I was like, wow. I was like, wow, that's a good analogy.
And that was unrehearsed. That was unrehearsed.
I'm saying, I'm like you had that one. You had that one ready, prepped and ready. That is such a good one. The thing I want to add to that, what's so good about your analogy, is that, and know where you are in that morning.
Yeah.
Simply put, you know it's Cheerios if you got up when you woke up late. You look forward to oatmeal when you got up early. It's that simple. Don't ask for oatmeal. You got up too late. You don't have the extra options. You've already done it to yourself. And so mentally start conditioning yourself. You want oatmeal? Tomorrow, get up earlier. Not a penalty, not mad. Just if you want that better option, you're going to have to earn that extra time. And that is part of the whole concept. And I think sometimes some of our kids, maybe some of our more immature ones especially, they still want oatmeal when they got up at 7:25. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you simply don't have time.
And what does that look like on a tennis court, right? That looks like, we were in this forehand to forehand cross court rally, and I wanted to run around and hit a forehand inside out. It's like, well,
right.
You didn't hit it well enough, so now you got to hit this backhand cross court instead.
Right. Again,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You didn't hit it well enough. But next
100%.
Maybe next point you will.
And the guy maybe that's part of it too. As you mentioned, like it's the backhand to backhand, and you look with the inside out. Well, at some point, hit the backhand big enough that you can run around without it being a risk. Otherwise, and the same thing when the guy's looking to run around. That's why the backhand on line is so effective. So to me, it's a very simple thing that once a kid can start to understand it, the kid knows, man, that kid's forehand's killing me. Well, what can we do to take away his time so he's not killing you with that shot? Can we run him to his forehand first? Because maybe his inside out's just a little bit bigger. Can we get the ball to his backhand earlier and deeper? can make the ball more driving and less heavy because the heavy may be giving him the time he needs to run around, and so on and so on and so on. And I think those are ways you start getting kids to problem solve. That's a real skill that I see lately has not been some of our younger kids that we did so much better before. I blame myself and coaches like me for overcoaching sometimes, instead of letting the kid kind of figure it out. The problem solving has got to continue to be stressed as one of the things that a kid's getting good at a lot of times. And I put that under the mental development because I find that's where the mental development and the tactics kind of go hand in hand. Do I know what I'm doing? Do I know how I'm countering? And the adjustments as you start getting older, that's really all it comes down to. Everybody's got skills, everybody has a few tactics. Can you make the adjustments? And that's what it comes down to for me. So this is good. I really hope the viewers kind of write some of these things down, and in a future episode we may even have a little bullet board on the side. I will taper it at that point right there, and as we sign off.
Yeah. All right. This was a good one. Like I said, I'm Alvin. That's
all
Torrey.
about time.
It's all about time. Best of three. We're out.